Okay. At the Lux. That's right. How's it going? Good to see you. Hi. Hello. Awesome. You saw the plane. It's awesome. Never saw it.
Good evening.
Hi, Joe. Nice to meet you. Hi. Hi. That's right, yeah.
All right, there we go. For those of you who I've not yet met, my name is Melissa Giller. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer here at the Ronald Reagan Presidential Foundation and Institute. Thank you for joining us. In honor of the men and women around the world who defend our freedom, if I could please ask for you to rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And then before we get started, I couldn't go any further if I didn't recognize in the room, we are joined by our illustrious former Congressman Elton Gallegly and his wife Janice. Okay, so the year was 1976. It was August, and large crowds were gathered at the Republican National Convention. People were waiting to learn who had succeeded in getting the Republican nomination for President of the United States. Of course, the nominees were Ronald Reagan and Gerald Ford. Now, although Ronald Reagan narrowly lost the nomination to incumbent President Ford, what happened next is still talked about today. Ronald Reagan's impassioned and unifying concession speech electrified the nation and elevated him to the forefront of the conservative movement. His words that night struck a chord with delegates and Americans watching across the country, offering a bold vision of limited government, renewed patriotism, and moral clarity. Now, while he left Kansas City without the nomination, Ronald Reagan left with something greater, the admiration of a party increasingly ready for his leadership. The seeds of his future presidency were sown in that moment of grace, conviction, and rising influence. Now, of course, the rest is history, running and winning and sweeping in both 1980 and 1984. Today, Ronald Reagan is considered one of our most popular and successful presidents in modern history, consistently being ranked in the top 10 of polls. Now, you could perhaps call that a comeback from his 1976 defeat. And speaking of comebacks, we're here tonight to discuss Joe Concha's latest book, The Greatest Comeback Ever, Inside Trump's Big Beautiful Campaign. Now, if you've ever wondered what happens when sharp political insight meets an even sharper pen, look no further than Joe in this book. A media maestro and master of the well-placed zinger, Joe brings his trademark wit and unflinching analysis to his latest book. With a front row seat, he takes readers behind the scenes of Donald Trump's 2024 presidential campaign, chronicling every twist and every televised moment. It's not just a campaign story, it's a wild ride, and Joe was the perfect guide. But before I introduce him, since Joe is really so great with his quick wit and his quick jokes, what better way to start the program than by sharing one of the greatest zingers Ronald Reagan ever told?
I will not make age an issue of this campaign. I am not going to exploit, for political purposes, my opponent's youth and inexperience.
I love the water sip at the end. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome to the stage media personality, columnist, Fox News and Fox Business Network commentator, and New York Times bestselling author, Joe Concha.
That was very nice.
Thank you.
No pressure, huh? Quick wit.
Quick
Zingers.
wits. You know, I read the book. I've watched you on TV.
I know, but if I bomb, always under promise and over deliver.
It's a really, really friendly audience, I promise.
Yeah, I can see that, yes. Mm-hmm.
So, in reading your book,
yes.
I think the first thing that sort of took me by surprise, and it makes sense of when the book came out, but for those of you who don't know you haven't read the book, you wrote this book before Donald Trump won. So how do you do that, and how do you prepare? I mean, we all knew he was going to win, but what if he didn't win? What happens next?
That was quite the gamble, right? February, I go to my publisher, HarperCollins, and I'm like, I got an idea. I want to ride shotgun on the Trump campaign and write all about it. And the first thing my publisher said was, what if he doesn't win? I said, well, then we got to pivot to something else. So I could have done all that work, for nothing. Because, so sure enough, they okayed it. And then they said, well, what do you think about a title? And I said, well, if he does win, this would be the greatest comeback ever. I mean, the Red Sox, Yankees, 04, came back from 3 down. Okay, fine, but not like this. And they're like, but yeah, you need a second part of the title, because we don't have like Moby Dick anymore. We don't have like Orca. Like you don't have like these simple, nice titles. It's always got to be like, it sounds like a paragraph almost. So then I'm like, well, he likes to say big and beautiful a lot. So why don't we go with like inside Trump's big, beautiful campaign? And then the irony is that this bill passes and he literally calls it the big, beautiful campaign. So I think I gave him the idea, but that's just me. But then the publishers, I said, but I think I need a little bit more on here, because Kamala Harris is part of this book also, and Joe Biden, of course. And so I said, look, why don't we go with the greatest comeback ever, inside Trump's big, beautiful campaign, with an ellipsis, unburdened by what has been. Right? I go, Joe, we don't got the room, we got to get Trump on there, the whole thing. So whenever I do an interview on the radio or television, I always make that the title anyway, even though it isn't. And people say, everybody gets the joke, which is great. And then the back of the book's kind of cool, because it has all these predictions of what people said before the election. And these come from Republicans and Democrats. So you got, for instance, let's see, Rick Wilson, the principled conservatives of the Lincoln Project. Trump's going to lose. He's going to lose badly. He's going to get wrecked. I like this one, Nikki Haley. Donald Trump will not win the general election. There will be a female president of the United States. It will either be me or it will be Kamala Harris. Whoops on that one. This is my favorite. Trump can't last as president for 4 years with his brain deteriorating at the rate it is. Nancy Pelosi. Yeah, that's not good. Let's see. Oh, Bill Kristol, another conservative, right? You know who won't get the credit they deserve? Kamala Harris, Nancy Pelosi, Liz Cheney, and tens of millions of women who will be responsible for defeating Trump. And then the last quote on here is, Trump wins this quite easily. Save the tape. Play it back if I'm wrong. This is how it's going to end. And that was me on Hannity in October of 2024. Thank God. Yeah. And I think the reason why I was so confident at that point, I was hoping, of course, for the book, but the minute that Donald Trump, these polls were released, and they were polls from the Teamsters, and that's the biggest union in the country, 1.3 million members. And when Biden was in the race, Biden led Trump by 10 among the rank and file of the Teamsters. You're like, okay, he always portrays himself as a union president, 10 points, all right, that kind of makes sense. Then Kamala is installed Soviet style as the nominee, and the Teamsters puts out another internal poll, which showed Trump up by 30 over Kamala among the Teamsters. I'm like, if she's losing by 30 in the Teamsters, how's she win in Pennsylvania and Michigan, right? And that means United Auto Workers probably are following suit, U.S. Steel, restaurant workers. So if he's getting the unions, and he's getting more of the black vote, and he's getting more of the Latino vote, who's left for her besides the childless cat lady, right? I mean, that's basically, that was it, and that's why I was so confident.
Well, good job.
Thank you.
Now, we will get more into the book contents in a minute.
Excellent.
But the book focuses on the resilience and strategy behind political comebacks. So I wondered if you could apply some of those lessons in a more universal way for people, whether it be politics or business or even their personal lives. Are there things they could take from your book for themselves?
Resiliency, right? I mean, you look at Donald Trump, for example. Think of all the things that were thrown at this guy. Ever since January 6th of 2021, he was taken off of state ballots in Maine and Colorado. Obviously, 91 felony counts, 4 different cases in places that obviously it was not going to go well for him, whether it be Washington, D.C., whether it be New York City. You think about the Republican Party also, many were also turning on him initially as well. And just all of these headwinds, and obviously a media that's going to be completely hostile to him no matter what, and to this day. So you think about that, and oh, by the way, 2 assassins nearly, killed him. One struck him in the ear, obviously, July 13th in Butler, and then that guy that was in a sniper's nest at Trump International down in Palm Springs. I mean, if a Secret Service agent doesn't see that barrel coming out, he's a sitting duck in a green. There's nowhere to go. So you think about all these things that are thrown at him, and yet he just kept moving forward, and he would get hit, and instead of like whining, complaining, going back to a very nice life, and he very easily could have done that, he thought of the country first in the end, and that resiliency. No matter what's thrown at you, if you have a goal, you will achieve it. And with Ronald Reagan, you could say the same thing about, losing in '76, right? And people then saying, well, maybe he's just too old to run, which is ironic to think about now. He was 64 in 1976, and that's considered old, and we've just had a 81, 82-year-old president, and a 78-year-old one now. So yeah, Reagan, from that moment on, I remember he said, after '76, right, I wasn't really alive at that time. I was barely alive, but I've read a lot about him. He quotes this Scottish ballad, which was interesting. He says, I will lay down and bleed a little, but I am only wounded. I am not slain, and I will come back and fight again. That's what he said in his concession speech in 1976. So that's where you're like, game on, he's definitely coming back in '80, and then sure enough, not only a comeback, but a blowout by the time we got to that election, won 44 states over Jimmy Carter, when he trailed Carter by 8 points in polling in mid-October, which is really remarkable. So he really finished strong. So that's the lesson, I guess.
Well, and let's take that a step further. You talk in your book about your admiration for Ronald Reagan. You talk about it publicly, and yet you were barely born. What sort of attracted you, whether it was a young age or maybe when you were older in life, to the president?
I was 9 years old. I was in 5th grade. It was during recess. It was the day Reagan was being inaugurated.
Okay.
And suddenly these sirens started going off in town. So I went to the teacher. I'm like, is there a fire? And she goes, no, the hostages were just released. Now, again, there's no cell phones or anything like that, but people knew that that was happening. And then I thought to myself, like, wow, Ronald Reagan just got inaugurated like 5 minutes ago, and they're already out. I'm like, boy, this is a guy who gets things done. So then just from there, he was just a guy that even at 9, 10, 11 years old, and my parents were big fans, don't get me wrong. So on TV every night or over the dinner table, they talk about how much they love the president. Again, that zinger that you played before. I mean, he was the first president that could actually make me laugh, and that you wanted to listen to. So that's what kind of got me into this whole thing that I'm doing now, just seeing the success of Reagan, and again, the resiliency when it came to the Soviet Union, and winning that Cold War without firing a shot. Even at like 16, 17 years old, I'm running for president of my class in high school. And I lost to Tom Bagley. Who loses to a guy named Bagley? I still think the thing was fixed. That's just me. Yeah, so that's what just kind of got me involved, that he was just so inspiring because he was so successful and just so charismatic and magnetic.
Well, and I love that you said you guys talked about him at the dinner table, because one of the other Ronald Reagan quotes I love so much is, all great change happens at the dinner table. Have those conversations.
And even now I got young kids, and I see sometimes, when we go over to other people's house, whatever, like the kids are just sitting around a table on a phone or an iPad. We don't allow that in my house. Nope, dinner table, 4 of us, no TV, nothing, and I'll always remember that probably more than anything. I have a 9 and an 11-year-old, by the way. I probably should share that. Yeah, go ahead.
They're 29 and 32.
Right.
So speaking of presidents, and in your book you do talk about the time you met Donald Trump. I don't know if you've met him other times as well, but for those of us in the room who will probably never have the opportunity to meet President Trump, what is he like, sort of behind the scenes, one-on-one, when he's not on TV?
He's very funny, and he's very cool. Like, he owns a room, so part of the book, obviously, I want to go behind the scenes. So the first thing I did was I contacted the Trump campaign. I said, hey, there's going to be a rally in Wildwood, New Jersey. I'm from Jersey. And, presidential candidates almost never come to Jersey because it's going to go the way California usually goes, right? So you don't campaign there. But in this case, like, Trump's like, no, he wants to go to Wildwood. So I said, okay, I'd love to go backstage and maybe talk to the president for a bit and just, see this from behind the scenes. So I get an email back from this girl, Margot Martin, and she says, okay, Joe, we're going to give you transportation there. I'm like, oh, thank God. Because I got a 2006 Acura, 17 years old. The thing makes this weird shaking sound when you go over 60, and I'm like, I can't drive 3 hours to the beach in this thing. And then, then I keep reading, and the paragraph below says, and you'll meet the Trump plane at LaGuardia Airport on this tarmac. I'm like, all right, now we're talking. So, I get up that morning. I had to do some things with my kids. I barely ate. Like, I had like 1 spoonful of yogurt, and had to run out the door. So when we get on the plane, we're waiting there, and I am starving. But I'm like, Trump had Trump steaks. So I would imagine I'm on the Trump plane, I'm going to steak, right? It's going to be, lobster tails or something like that. And then sure enough, Wendy's. And I even said, you know, to his press secretary, Caroline actually was there, Levitt, and I said, I thought McDonald's was this thing. They go, there's no Wendy's, or there's no McDonald's in LaGuardia Airport. So we had to settle on Wendy's. I'm like, okay, so tater tots, Diet Coke, French fries, cheeseburger. I'm like, all right, this is kind of cool.
Sounds delicious.
Yeah, it's funny. I can show you guys
Were there
pictures.
any Frosties?
No Frosties.
No Frosties.
I was disappointed in that. But there were, the funny thing was, like, I have a picture of the food, and then below me you see my golden seatbelt. Like, it was such a contradiction, but that's what made him, you know, someone that you could kind of relate to. Like, this guy likes fast food like I do. So then I'm looking out the window, because we still haven't left yet, and I hear, is that the Joe Concha? And I'm like, oh, that's him. So I turn around, instead of me saying like something like, oh, Mr. President, thank you so much for having me, I go, hey, look who it is. And he just smiled. And I go, you play some golf today? He goes, no. I said, I did. He goes, really? What'd you shoot? And I go, 62. He goes, you're really good. I said, Mr. President, that was on the front nine. So we just jibber-jabbered about like golf for like 5 minutes, and then eventually, you know, his people wanted to get going, and that was that. But like just very personable, down to earth, and couldn't be any more gracious. And then he actually invited us down to Mar-a-Lago for New Year's Eve after the election. And he remembered everything about me, my kids, my wife. I'm like, you meet 1,000 people a day. He's like, how's the doctor? Because my wife's a doctor. I'm like, you remember that? That's remarkable. So yeah, just a cool guy. I know that's not the best description. But
no, it's the best description.
Oh, okay.
It's great. Now, speaking of family, and earlier you mentioned, you know, the 2 assassination attempts on his life. There's a section in your book that, as a parent, sort of, you took me aback and had to sort of take a minute, because you're talking about the first assassination attempt.
Yeah.
And when you get home, your young daughter says to you, basically, not to go to any future rallies, because now she's worried for your life.
Yeah.
So as a media personality, as a public figure, how do you balance what you need to do for your job with sort of the concerns and needs of your family? Wow,
that's a great question. My wife did, my daughter did say that. It was, you know, surreal watching it. So I was about to go on the big weekend show, and then I'm watching the speech just to see if he's going to say anything different, because it looked like Biden was going to drop out at that point. He may announce that J.D. Vance was going to be his vice president. He didn't know whether it would be J.D. or Marco or Glenn Youngkin. And Katie Pavlich and Jason Chaffetz, they were in makeup, so I was the only one watching. And then you heard the pop, 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 and you see him grab his ear like he was stung by a hornet. We've seen it 1,000 times. And then he goes down, and I just yelled, holy, you know, like, I think he's hit. He might be dead, you know, and you start rambling, and I never, you know, witnessed anything like that on live TV. It was just horrible and surreal. And then he gets up and he does, you know, fight, fight, fight. And I talked to him about it in the book. I interviewed him after the election. I said, what made you want to get up in that moment where you don't know there's a second shooter? Like, you're rising above your Secret Service. Somebody else could still be out there. He said, I knew my son was watching. He goes, I knew my family was watching. He goes, I knew the country was watching, I knew the world was watching, and I didn't want to show any weakness. He said, there was a stretcher on there for the stage. He said, I'm not getting on that effing thing. Yeah, I'm going to walk off on my own, and I'm going to tell the country that this movement cannot be stopped by anything. Fight, fight, fight. I'm like, wow, that's balls right there. What can you say? Yes. So you had a question, and how do I balance these things,
yes.
Right? You know, because I got invited to another rally, I just turned it down. You know, because I went to the RNC, and I went to the Madison Square Garden rally, and I felt I got enough behind the scenes. So sometimes you just got to learn to say no. But then I had people I work with, like Benjamin Hall, who lost, you know, his legs in Ukraine, Trey Yingst, who's, you know, ducking bombs all the time over in Israel. So I'm like, man, these guys are much more courageous than me. So I do what I should do on Fox, and that's appear all across different shows. But if it came down to, if I'm going to put myself in a dangerous situation, I hate to say it, but I'd probably say no, because I got an 11-year-old daughter and a 9-year-old son at home, and 2 dogs and 3 fish and 2 frogs. That's not an exaggeration, yeah.
And sometimes you do those interviews in what, your pink TJ Maxx t-shirt or whatever that story was, which is a great story in here.
Yes, so I have a home studio, which is awesome, because if I'm on with Sean, for example, Sean is broadcasting from his house down in Palm Beach, or I was on with John Roberts on, I think it was yesterday, and he's in Washington. So if I go to New York, I'm going to be in what's called a pod anyway, where we're in boxes. So you see a split screen, you see, say, Laura Ingraham, and then you see me, because we're not on set anyway. So when that happens, they let me join from home. So it's cool, because when I do Fox and Friends First, for example, I'm on at like 5:45. I wake up at like 5:31.
The joy of being a man for all of you women in this room, right?
And the hair's easy, just throw a little water in it, and does this, has been doing this for 25 years. And then I walk down, I already have a tie, jacket, shirt waiting. I wear pajama bottoms, I'll admit that, nice cotton ones, you know. Got my little slippers, and then I just throw a little makeup on, I hook up my mic, you know, put in what's called an IFB, and I'm off and running, you know. And they give me the topics. They don't give me the questions, obviously. No one knows the questions. But the topics are usually something that, if I study for about 10 minutes, I could pretty much come up with an argument. And that's that. So that's kind of cool.
So tying Reagan and Trump again, during Ronald Reagan's acceptance speech in 1980, I'm going to read this because he said, "We're not, as some would have us believe, doomed in inevitable decline. I don't believe that, and I don't believe you do either. That's why I ask you to join me in this campaign. Let us make a commitment to each other. Let's make America great again."
Yeah.
Now, of course, decades later, Donald Trump uses a very similar campaign slogan. How do you think each leader used it to connect to voters?
Optimism, American greatness, American exceptionalism, right? Running a campaign saying that we're the greatest country in the world, we are here to lead, and we're not going to settle in any way, shape, or form. And we see that now with like Washington, D.C., where Trump says, why should we have the capital of the United States have one of the highest murder rates in the country, has a murder rate 6 times higher than Lima, Peru, 7 times higher than Mexico City, infinitely higher than London, Paris, Madrid. Why should we settle for that? I'm sending in troops. We're going to make this city safe again. And what do Democrats do? Crimes? There's no crime in Washington. You know, it's actually fine. It's down 30%. Or what? You know, they throw out all these stats where, trust me, I lived in Washington. It's not a place you want to walk at night. So I think that's like one little microcosm of just saying that we will not settle in any way, shape, or form as a country unless we are the absolute best. And Reagan knew that, and that's what he ran on. And you think about, say, Mondale, for example, he ran about in '84, and Mondale's platform was, well, I think you should pay more in taxes, right? I think you should be afraid because you're being too tough on the Soviets, and he put out that nuclear ad, you remember that. And just in general, just pessimism, right? And if you look at the pessimistic candidates from over the years, right? You look at Mondale, I mentioned, you can bring up John Kerry as well, Al Gore, obviously Hillary Clinton. Those are the type of candidates that lose when they attack America for being, say, racist, for example, or police are racist, everything is racist, and no one wants to hear that. They want to hear what will make us great again, and the original MAGA was Ronald Reagan.
Yeah. And speaking of positive characteristics in our presidents, you wrote a 2023 op-ed, and it was about Ronald Reagan. And in one section, you actually discussed the civility between Ronald Reagan and Tip O'Neill.
That's right.
That really doesn't happen anymore. Can you sort of discuss that?
Sure. So we all know Tip O'Neill, House Speaker, Democrats, Ronald Reagan, Republican president. They'd have their public disagreements, of course. That's how it works in Washington. But then afterwards, Reagan would invite O'Neill to the White House for a drink because they're both Irishmen, right? Try to picture, I don't know, Nancy Pelosi accepting an invitation. I mean, this is wine, and she would probably still turn it down. Nancy Pelosi turning down Donald Trump when Trump would say, hey, why don't we try to work this out, right? It wouldn't happen. Hakeem Jeffries, you think that he would ever meet with a Trump? No, of course not. We even saw that with like Paul Ryan and Barack Obama. Like there was no talk afterwards. Compromise is almost a dirty word at this point. And you think about the rhetoric from Democrats, right? In terms of, all right, so Tip O'Neill, for example, after Reagan was shot in 1981, he was one of the first people to visit him in the hospital. And he put 2 hands over Reagan's hands and said, God bless you, Mr. President. You're going to be okay.
And they prayed together.
And they prayed together, right? Could you ever picture that happening now? When you consider that 4 days before Donald Trump was shot, Joe Biden, the sitting president of the United States, said, it's time to put Donald Trump in a bullseye, right? I mean, that's just incredible. It didn't apologize for it until after the assassination. Maybe I was wrong. It's a bad choice of words. And even Tim Walz was saying just 2 weeks after Trump was shot that Trump is a threat to democracy that absolutely must be stopped. And somebody will take that the wrong way. Yes. And then sure enough, the second assassin, Ryan Ruth, they found his manifesto, and it said, democracy must be saved and Donald Trump must be stopped. Like literally quoting like Walz word for word. So these things matter, right? And then even like these people that get on TV all the time because they say the most provocative things, like Jasmine Crockett, the Democrat, Texas, where you have Greg Abbott, who was struck by a tree when he was 26 years old, and he's paralyzed from the waist down, and she does a speech and calls him Governor Hot Wheels, to which the crowd laughs, and she thinks it's the greatest thing. And you would think that CNN and MSNBC would say, we can't put this person on anymore. I mean, that's just below. any standards that we have. Nope, she practically has a cot over at CNN now at this point. She's on so much. It's crazy. Then we also had who? AOC compares Donald Trump's immigration detention centers to concentration camps. Did you even read about the Holocaust? Do you even know what you're talking about? So again, whether it was Tip O'Neill or Ronald Reagan, or even in the 90s, we had Bill Clinton and Newt Gingrich working together quite nicely. We had this thing called a balanced budget amendment. We had welfare reform. Era of big government's over. I'm sure they didn't like each other probably on a personal level the way Tip O'Neill and Ronald Reagan did, but they got things done for the good of the country. And you just don't see that anymore. And I think that social media is the absolute worst thing that has ever happened, particularly to the Democratic Party, because there's no filter and they can't control their emotions. That we do know.
Yeah. Now, in that same op-ed,
Yes.
you wrote, "It makes one wonder how Ronald Reagan would fare if sent through time and placed into the running for the 2024 GOP nomination." So, of course, I have to ask,
Yes.
how do you think he would have fared?
I put a lot of thought into this one. Because it's hard comparing eras. You know, it's like, how would Joe DiMaggio do compared to Shohei Ohtani, right, in the Major League Baseball? Well, you can't really compare. You know, like it's two different eras. What I do know is that, boy, they were a lot alike, Reagan and Trump, not in terms of style, certainly. And Reagan was obviously a lot more, for lack of a better word, civilized than Reagan, but that was more the era then. But they were both populist. I wouldn't call them both like staunch conservatives. No, I think they were both populist, and we know that because Ronald Reagan won 44 states in 80 and 49 states in 84 because he had Reagan Democrats, right, and blue-collar workers that elevated themselves to him because he knew that ultimately they knew that Reagan would make their lives better with their policies, and they just liked him more. And then you look at Donald Trump, same thing. You know, he was able to bring Democrats over, and the Teamsters and all those unions that I talked about before. So with the populist message, I think that worked. I think they were similar in terms of they wanted a strong military, peace through strength. They liked big tax cuts. That's good. Ronald Reagan was the original drill baby drill guy. Like, he wanted domestic energy like pumped up as much as possible. So they had a lot of things in common. To answer your question, who would win? I don't know.
No one knows.
No one knows. But I do know this, I think. This is what I would say. That if it was a choice between Ronald Reagan and Kamala Harris, Reagan would win 51 states, which is mathematically impossible. But yeah, I think he'd sweep all 50 like he did with Mondale.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
Trump had people vote against him more than Reagan would. Let's put it that way. But for the nomination, it depends on what year we'd have it in, I guess. I don't know if Trump would win in 80, and I don't know if
Right.
Reagan would win in 24.
And we say here at the Reagan, we believe that Ronald Reagan was supposed to lose in 76 because he had to be president in the 80s for Mikhail Gorbachev to be in office, for Margaret Thatcher to be in office, for Brian Mulroney to be in office. So it worked, right?
And the same thing with Trump. If he won in 2020, and I put, you know, big scare quotes around if he won in 2020, he would have had a Democratic House and Senate to deal with, and they just would have kept impeaching him. And he couldn't put forth this awesome agenda that he has now and really think, who should be in my cabinet? Like, that's the big difference here. He has people that are loyal to him, and they're all singing from the same sheet of music. And that's why you don't see the leaks that we used to, and that's why he's able to move forward the big, beautiful bill with a 3-vote margin in the House, which is insane. And Mike Johnson's working with him when Paul Ryan didn't. And John Thune's working with him when Mitch McConnell didn't. So it lines up so much better for Trump in 24. Plus, and this is what Trump said during one of his rallies, and I'm furiously writing this down because I hadn't heard him use the line before. He goes, you know, this movement is more popular than ever before because you just saw 4 years of what the alternative's like. He said, 2016, you had to imagine what Hillary Clinton's presidency would be like. In 2020, imagine what Biden's. You lived it, now you've seen it, and boy, people suddenly had a nostalgic appreciation for it like they did for Reagan in the 80s.
Right. Well, and again, that was Reagan's line in 80, right? Are you better off than you were 4 years ago?
Yeah.
If you think you're better off, don't vote for me. If you don't think you're better off, vote for me, and then 44 states.
Yeah, and Melissa, it was in 84 as well. Are you better off than you were 4 years ago?
That's right.
He goes, I would like to think that you are.
Right, and so continue to vote for me.
Yes,
exactly.
Simple stuff.
So what do you think made Ronald Reagan's message and media strategy so successful then? Do you think that could work in the sort of toxic political environment we're in now?
Yeah, because I think optimism is something that is timeless, that can survive all of that, you know, like, all right, so we have social media now more, and yeah, you know, the more provocative voices in the room get the attention like I talked about, but I think in the end, his messaging as far as like the shining city on the hill, right, and it's morning in America again. Think of all the slogans, right, that have worked over the years, like the two that I just mentioned, even like George H.W. Bush, a little hokey, but 1,000 points of light. All right, that's fine. Bill Clinton, the man from hope. George W. Bush, I think, was like bringing integrity back to the White House or something like that. And then obviously 2008, hope and change. Obama, again, all optimistic things. And then Donald Trump, 2016, make America great again. While Hillary had something that was like, I'm with her. Okay. Like had an arrow like pointing somewhere. You're like, no, that's not going to work. So yeah, I think that the media strategy would work. And again, he just owned the screen like no president we'd ever seen probably since Kennedy. But then again, TV really wasn't a thing much when Kennedy was in office. So yeah, he was the first TV president. That's certainly for sure, Ronald Reagan.
And I think I could probably figure out your answer because you talked about your love of social media a moment ago. But in your view, is the modern media environment more likely to hinder or help political comebacks?
Ooh. Let's put it, well, media can be defined in so many different ways, right? So we have legacy media, ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN, MSNBC, New York Times, Washington Post. But then we have social media, and that's become this great equalizer. So when these people put out ridiculous stories that you could very easily fact check, suddenly X has all these like Paul Revere's down there basically fact checking the media, and then you have an alternative where you're like, hey, what they said was wrong. When we were growing up, but we have ABC, CBS, and NBC, Dan Rather, Tom Brokaw, Peter Jennings, and that was basically it. So now it's really expanded. So can you have more political comebacks in this environment? Yeah, I think so, because people know now where to get their news and where they could trust it, when before the networks had a complete monopoly on it, along with the New York Times and Washington Post.
So you mentioned you even read the back of your book, which has these various quotes from both Republicans and Democrats.
Yeah.
Those are also used to start each chapter. I did like how you chose quotes from both sides, and I'm actually curious, did you ever do any follow-up research after Donald Trump won, if any of those people tried to sort of take back what they said?
No.
No, none of them.
Yeah, no, none of them. That's what gets them on TV, right?
Right.
I mean, you watch like Meet the Press, and it used to be a great show with Tim Russert. He'd challenge both sides. He'd play back somebody's words and say, what's different now that you've changed your position? Like pretty simple journalistic 101 stuff, but now it looks exceptional, right? And now you watch a Meet the Press or CBS This Morning or whatever it's called, Face of the Nation, and basically it's usually, let's see, 3 liberals and 1 Republican. And the Republican's like Chris Christie, or it's John Bolton, or it's like if you hate Trump and you have an R next to your name, then that's what gets you on those shows. What you don't see is like the true Trump supporter on there, you know? So I forget what the question was, however.
What was the question? If the modern media would help someone in the digital era sort of helps with the political comeback or not
and
help with the political comeback.
Did anybody apologize?
Yeah.
Any of those people?
Yeah, no.
No, and they never will. And they'll keep getting booked. That's the thing. There's no accountability, so it doesn't matter. That's what gets you your next contract.
So for people who read your book, and I hope all of you read the book, for people who read the book, what's sort of like the main takeaway you really hope people walk away with?
Oh, wow. That's a great question. I think the main takeaway is that you can't buy an election, for starters, because Kamala Harris could not overcome the fact that she was a human Chernobyl outside of a teleprompter, right? Just not good. And she spent $1.5 billion in 107 days. And she paid people like Beyonce and Bruce Springsteen and Eminem to perform at her rallies so the crowds looked bigger. And people began to buy into, oh, maybe there is this groundswell under her where it never was there, right? So, and you think about like, if she won, if they go through $1.5 billion in a campaign that loses every swing state in the popular vote, how would they be governing exactly this economy? You know, so, and then you look at Trump and like the Madison Square Garden rally that I was at, for example, and who's there? Dana White and Dr. Phil and Joe Rogan and Tucker Carlson and, you know, Hulk Hogan, all these people. I met Hulk, by the way, at the RNC, and it's such a shame that he passed. He was only 71 years old. But I'm sitting in this like makeshift green room, about to go on Fox, and suddenly I feel all my bones crunching and somebody hugging me from behind. I'm like, who is that? And I turn around, and before like I could see who it is, he goes, "I watch you all the time, brother. Love your work." And we end up talking for a while. And at the DNC, like, who do you have? You have a bunch of celebrities that no one really likes, and all these elitists. And I think the big takeaway now is that the Democratic Party is now the party of the richest 1%, the party of war, the party of censorship, the party that says they want to save democracy only to, you know, install a candidate without one vote from the public. I mean, it's amazing. And I think Republicans now, they see what the answer is, and that is just talking to people, not talking down to people, and the populist message that's going to win you Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Arizona, Nevada, North Carolina, and Georgia. They have the formula, while Democrats at this point, let's put it this way, the most popular politician right now among Democrats is whom? Anybody want to guess? Gallup, just out today. Yeah, you would think, right? Bernie Sanders.
Oh.
A guy who has never passed one piece of legislation in his life, a guy who rails about fighting the oligarchy while flying private to those rallies, a guy who is worth millions upon millions in using capitalism to enrich himself, only to talk about socialism. That's where that party is going now at this point. AOC, Mamdani near me in New York City,
Yep.
Bernie Sanders popular, the moderates, the reasonable folks like Tip O'Neill, right? They don't exist anymore. And if they keep going left, they're not going to win any national elections ever again. That I know.
And what do you think about people heading towards socialism? I mean,
I think young people like to hear that they could get a lot of free stuff. I mean, this Mamdani in New York, he's like Oprah. You know, you get free health care, and you get free busing, and you get free housing. He literally wants to seize housing from rich people and give it to the poor. And this guy comes from a millionaire family. That's the thing. They're all hypocrites in this regard. AOC, same thing. She flew on Lear jets to all these fight to oligarchy tours while talking about how we have to save the environment and battle billionaires. It's a joke, and I think people see right through it. So yeah, if Democrats want to go towards socialism, don't get in their way. Let them do it. Because Bill Clinton won big in '96 because he went to the center, right? And Barack Obama at least portrayed himself as a centrist. And then we saw kind of no, not really. So yeah, that's what you got to do, go towards the center. And that's why Trump's able to pick off so many of these voters that Republicans used to be able to not get anywhere near.
so we are going to go to all your questions next. I have one last question, so start thinking about the questions you want to ask Joe. But in my stack of questions, I have left for you, in my opinion, the most important question, both from your book, that I need to ask you now. So
Really?
Are you ready?
Boxers.
Great, we're done here. Thank you, Joe
thank
Concha. Okay,
They're more comfortable, you know?
in your book,
Yeah.
you offer a quote in your book. And you say, you ready?
Yeah.
Your favorite movie of all time is Shawshank Redemption.
Correct, yes.
It is my favorite movie of all time.
Is it really?
So here's my question.
Okay.
Would Andy have survived and escaped if he did not know Red?
No?
If you haven't seen the movie, it makes no sense to you, but here we
You've
go.
all seen Shawshank Redemption, right? Prison Break kind of movie. Oh, I may have just given something away. No, Red is a guy who knows how to get things from time to time, right?
Yes,
That's the
he
quote.
is.
So Red was able to get all the different posters that he used, and behind the poster every night, little by little, over 18 years, he was able to chip his way out. He was lucky to be on the end cell.
Right,
That worked out well.
right.
But yeah.
And keep his sanity. He helped him.
Yeah.
Andy had to keep his sanity.
Andy Dufresne crawled through 500 yards of shit and came out clean on the other side. It's the best line ever.
I quote the shoe line all the time.
Oh, the shoes?
All the time.
Whoever looks at a man's shoes.
Whoever looks at a man's shoes.
Oh, I say that on
time.
the air sometimes. No, I don't say that one. I'll say, like, I'll joke with, like, Sean once in a while. Like, he'll ask me a question. I'll say, how could you be so obtuse? Is it deliberate? I know, I could quote this movie all day. I'm sorry, but it's awesome.
It's your all homework. If you haven't seen it, you got to see it. It's a great
I watched it
movie.
with my 9-year-old, but not the bad parts.
Oh, that's a scary movie.
Yeah,
for
like
a
the bogs, like
9-year-old.
almost rape scenes. You're like, okay, nothing really happens here, no big deal. But yeah, the escape ones I just want to get to. So I love that question. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. See, I read the book.
Speaking of questions, this is how you pivot to that.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, speaking of questions. We have members of our team in the audience with a microphone, so if you have a question, please raise your hand, and please do wait for the microphone to come to you. You can go right here.
Thank you. Hey, Joe.
Hey.
Question for you. Right now, we're seeing a lot of investigations going on with Congress. We're seeing things going on with Adam Schiff. We're seeing things with the Attorney General in New York. We're seeing things going on with the auto pen. Mm-hmm. And my question is, we saw investigations going on before. We saw things going into the Biden family, to Hunter Biden. We saw things going into the voting machines.
Yeah.
And it was all theater. Do you think this is theater, or do you think it's real? Do you think something's going to come of this when all is said and done?
That's the thing. I've seen this movie 100 times, right? Clear evidence that Hunter Biden was sending money through shell companies that didn't produce anything. And then all the Biden family members, including like one who's like an elementary school teacher, is getting millions of dollars. And then 10% to the big guy. And Hunter Biden's business partner, Tony Bobulinski, says the big guy, of course, was Joe Biden. And then suddenly Joe Biden, living on a vice president's salary and then before that a senator, has this gorgeous beach house that he buys in 2018, like after this money apparently didn't go to him. And then nothing happened. And it's not like, Republicans didn't control the House. They did. But the media just poo-poos this stuff. With Nixon back in 74, the reason why he resigned, because there were enough Republicans joining Democrats to say, yeah, there's, the cover-up is far worse than the crime. This is wrong, and he should go. And then Nixon saw the numbers and said, yeah, I got to go. But we had a press corps at the time that was trusted. Gallup showed that in 1974, 72% of Americans trusted the media. Can you believe that? 3 and 4, basically. Now it's like the media is as trusted as gas station sushi, which I had on the way here. That's the bathroom visit before. Yeah, that's not good. So the media just keeps, and Tulsi Gabbard just keeps putting out evidence, like actual documents. Now, I guess the good news is that you have Pam Bondi and you have Tulsi and you have all these people that will produce evidence. Like Adam Schiff is screwed. There is absolute market fraud there. Hey, it's my biggest applause line. Yeah. So on paper, he's screwed. But then in the end, will anything happen? Did anything ever happen to Hillary Clinton, right? As far as like the Russiagate and the Steele dossier, and nothing happens. So until I see something happen, I don't know how to answer that question. So that's 2 questions I could answer now. I'm worthless.
We're keeping tally, just
All right,
so
thank you.
We're going to go over here. Oh, the same question.
Oh, good.
Okay, so please re-raise your hands. Trisha, there's someone right in front of you.
Okay. Aquarius. I figured that would be the
Is it
next
on?
one.
Testing?
Yes, sir.
Should I stand up? What do you expect with the meeting on Friday with Putin and President Trump?
I think Trump is...
and also, how do we fix California?
How much time do we have?
Well, I do live in New Jersey, and we run our state awesomely. No, I don't know if I'm the right guy to ask about that one. The first question, I just don't trust Putin in any way, shape, or form. I think Trump's doing everything in his power to end this war. And if, again, Kamala Harris won, there would be billions in perpetuity being sent to Ukrainians so they could keep this thing in a perpetual stalemate and thousands of people die every month. That was just going nowhere, obviously. The problem is that whenever Trump talks to Putin by phone, for example, before this summit, Putin would tell him all the right things, and then 5 minutes later, bomb a civilian area. So until, it's like the same answer I gave you, until I see, actual action from Putin saying, okay, we'll end this war, then I don't know if it's going to really mean all that much. But I admire Trump's effort here, because Trump's, in the end, he's all about wins, and he's all about what's best for our country. And what would be best for our country is to have Ukraine not under assault anymore. We have that minerals deal that's going on, and then go to business with Russia as far as like their energy and everything. That's what he's really thinking here. Like, yeah, he wants to save lives too. I believe that. But let's see what happens, not after the summit when Trump goes to the microphone or Putin goes to the microphone and says, okay, this is what we talked about and we think we have some pretty good framework here. Let's see what happens a day or 2 later if Putin's still launching missiles into Ukraine targeting civilians. That's your answer, I guess. Oh, and how do you fix California? I don't know. You got Newsom's now going to redistrict now? Is there anything left to redistrict at this point? There's like no Republicans basically, right? And I think something like, 43% of the state is Republican? Yeah, and it's really just, if you look at the states becoming more and more red, it's just, obviously, Sacramento, San Francisco, Los Angeles. So at this point, as long as you have Schiff, Pelosi, Swalwell, Newsom, Alyssa Milano, I don't see how, until leadership changes, and I thought Newsom had a chance of being recalled, and it wasn't even close. It's just, I don't know how you do you have any ideas on this one?
No.
Because you live here, so I figure.
I live here and pay the taxes and shake my head.
Right. Steve Hilton. I like Steve. Steve's a friend. How's he polling?
I don't know. Does anyone know how he's polling? Second.
Second? Oh, second among Republicans. Oh, okay, but second to Newsom. But what's that gap? Like 20 points? Yeah. That'll be tough. The good news is, I guess you could say, is that so many people are leaving California now that when they do the next census, you're going to lose electoral votes. And guess where they're going? Florida, Texas, and Tennessee.
Yes.
So the scenario will now be that so many people are moving out of blue states like California, New York, and Illinois. They're going to lose electoral votes. It's going to go to those 3 states that I mentioned that are quite red. And then even if a Democratic presidential candidate wins Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, they still have to pick off a red state in order to win the election. So they have to pick off like Georgia, which, very, very hard to do under a normal election, or North Carolina, or Arizona, which is becoming more red, I think, because of immigration. So yeah, Democrats are in real trouble because they don't have that blue wall to save them anymore. And they're going to actually have to be able to reach over and get those other states. And as we said, if you're going to be going towards socialism, they ain't going to do that. Ain't going to win. Hi.
So Steve Hilton was here just a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
And he made a terrific speech. If you were his campaign manager, what would you be having him do to overcome the shortfall in that?
I mean, I think that he's, from every interview that I've seen, and he goes on Fox a lot. I used to work with him. He's pointing out everything that's wrong with the state. He's pointing out all the failures of Newsom in terms of the wildfire response, for example. And just in general, how could you want to still live with, I guess I would just have him hammer this home all the time, why would you want to live in a state that has the highest homeless rate, the highest income taxes in the country, right, where it's managed horribly, where fires destroyed parts of Southern California where that never, ever had to happen? I mean, I was talking to a guy today, and we were talking about the fires, and I said, so why didn't they clear more of that brush out? Like they do that in Sweden, and if you could just create these big gaps, the fire's not gonna be able to jump the way it does. And he says, they haven't done that in 50 years. Like I would just, but you can't just point out all the things that are bad. You have to say all the things that you want to do. And I think just the old playbook, the Reagan playbook, you're gonna cut taxes, you're gonna bring more manufacturing back here, and you're gonna make this a state that you can be proud to live in again. I would hope there would be enough crossover for people, but maybe just the makeup of the state is just too Democratic. I sound like a pessimist at this point, but Steve's down by 20. That's a big gap to overcome, but hopefully he can do it. And yeah, hi.
Please wait for a microphone.
Oh, okay.
It's more of a statement than it is a question.
Okay.
You want to fix California, make sure Hilton wins. If you check Bianca's Riverside crime statistics, if he can't manage the crime statistics in Riverside, how can he run California?
Okay. So he's probably going to get the Democratic nomination? Oh, I'm sorry. Did you say Bianca? Oh, I'm sorry. It was a little hard to hear you. Okay. Bianco, right. He's sheriff? Yeah, okay. Sorry, again, I don't live here, so I got to get a little bit of education. Riverside sheriff, okay. So Bianco's a problem, you think? Okay. How's Steve doing against him in terms of polling? Like, pretty comfortably? I would think so. Yeah, Steve gets a lot more airtime. That helps.
Yeah.
He's very good at making an argument.
His book just came out. He was on the tour.
His book came out. Bald's in with chicks these days. I don't know. There's a lot of things going for him at this
We need
point.
to start asking you New Jersey questions. It'll be better. We're gonna.
Seriously,
Trish has a
I'm
question
sorry.
back there.
Hi, Joe. What's your take on the quote recess that the Senate and the House are doing so that Trump can't get his recess appointments in?
It's the same BS that, these games. It's just a delay tactic, obviously. No one even wants to solve the problem. This is all Democrats have. You tell me what they'll run on in 2026 in the midterms, right? I mean, you could say abortion. Well, I guess we've kind of seen how that's gone, right? Where no, there aren't these horrible abortions being done in back alleys or anything like that. The states decided. That's what it should be. It should be the Supreme Court. It should be individual states. And then when states like Ohio and Kansas, which are quite red, they had put a referendum saying should abortion be illegal in this state or not, and they still said no, it should be illegal, right? I don't agree with that, but so I don't think it's abortion. It's not going to be we could run the economy better. It's not going to be men should play against women in sports. It's not going to be all these things that, again, those 4 years under Biden and that cover-up, attempted cover-up, when his brain turned applesauce, during the 2020 campaign, let's face it, I think that hurts that party for a long time. And all they have are these tactics now at this point where they do filibusters for 25 hours like Cory Booker with the crazy eyes, right? Or they hold these rallies, fight the oligarchy, which no one speaks that way at a happy hour about oligarchies or anything like that. So I don't know what they run on and where they go, in purple states. In blue states, yeah, they can still get away with it to a certain extent, but I think it's not going to go well for them at all if the economy is going well. And right now, I looked at the S&P today. It went quite well, I think. Yeah. Yay, NVIDIA. Hi.
Go ahead.
The question is, if you notice what's happened, I'm more concerned about winning in the next 2 years with what's happening in the Republicans with the Tucker Carlson and all these groups that are going anti-Israel and pro-white and all these things. I'm more concerned about breaking up the great MAGA coalition that we had. Do you see any chance that those folks are going to be reined back in, or
like Elon, for example?
Well, and Tucker Carlson and those folks are really attacking the president.
Yeah, I don't think Tucker's a friend. I mean, I went on a show 100 times when he was at Fox, but I don't think he has the pull or relevance like he used to. I really don't. When he had his Fox show, he drove news cycles. Now he's on every day on the internet, and I'm sorry, I don't really hear much about him. So yeah, he could go off on his own reservation, but all I know is that the Jeffrey Epstein files were supposed to take down Trump because MAGA people were revolting from within, and then you see polls come out that Trump's never been more popular with the Republican base than he is right now, and because it's stupid, because people did the math like I did at the very beginning of that. If Trump were truly on some sort of nefarious list that showed that he was with young women down the Epstein Island, I'm pretty sure that Barack Obama and Joe Biden would have released that in 2016 when he ran for president to make sure he was never president. And that's it. Like, this thing would have been leaked a long time ago. Was he friends with Epstein? I guess everybody was in New York, if he had money. And yeah, did they socialize? I suppose, but he never was on any island or anything like that. So is there a list somewhere? If I'm Epstein, I probably wouldn't keep something like that. Like, here are my friends and here are my pedophile friends. Like, no, somebody would have found this thing by now and got it out there. So that's that. So yeah, I think the MAGA coalition's more than alive than well right now, no question.
There's a question in the far back of the room.
Hi. We're just living in such glorious times, and I'm so hopeful of the future because we have such a deep bench with a lot of young and talented people. Just curious, who do you think would make the strongest ticket in 2028?
J.D. Vance, Marco Rubio. And yeah, I just based that on the fact that if you are a vice president, you usually run for president, right? So we saw it with Nixon, for example, right after Eisenhower. And we saw it obviously with George H.W. Bush after Reagan, right? And we saw it with Gore after Clinton, right? And we saw it with Biden, kind of, right? Because Obama convinced him not to run in 2016 because Obama's all about checking off boxes, so he wanted to go from being the first black president to going to the first female president. Oh, by the way, both Ivy League educated. Like, they never respected Biden for not being that. So yeah, usually that's the case. J.D. Vance is extraordinarily talented. And you say, well, why not Marco J.D.? Well, I don't think J.D. wants to be vice president for another 8 years after 4. I think he's ready to graduate, and Marco's still young. So I think that's the strongest ticket. And I can't even give a second thought to anybody else. Right? Anybody else you put in there?
Well, I don't think it is. I actually do like Nikki Haley myself.
Oh, you like Nikki? Okay.
Sorry, I do.
Problem is the MAGA people are kind of, because they felt that she was disloyal.
I'm entitled to my opinion.
That's right.
Come on.
Anyway.
Who else has questions?
I wouldn't say that.
I think the Republicans' biggest opponent is legacy media. I think if they stepped out of the way, we wouldn't have all these issues. Well, not stepped out of the way, told the truth. Mm-hmm. It seems like they're on the downhill, like fading away. Do you think there's a breaking point where they will no longer have the influence that they're having now?
They don't already. All right. I'll put it to you this way. Before the 2016 election, I was at The Hill which is like kind of like a centrist kind of publication in Washington. And I did an analysis on the 59 newspaper endorsements that went out before that presidential election. And 57 went to Hillary Clinton and 2 went to Donald Trump. So 57 major newspapers told their readers who they should vote for and why. And all that got Hillary was a concession speech and a set of steak knives, right? In other words, like, everybody's like, yeah, screw you, whatever, right? And then we saw during this campaign, at one point, ABC News, which is run by a gal who lives here in Southern California named Dana Walden, right? She's the head of ABC News. She is also best friends with Kamala Harris. And by best friends, I mean they lived in Brentwood, like a block from each other. And Dana Walden actually introduced Kamala to Doug Emhoff, right? So, and now this is the person running ABC News. So the first 100 stories on Kamala Harris when she became the nominee, all 100 were positive. I mean, even like Baghdad Bob would see that and be like, hey, wait a minute, are you laying on a little thick? I mean, 100 out of 100, that's crazy. And Trump still won every swing state in the popular vote. So if legacy media did everything they could to get the human Chernobyl over a finish line, and she still lost the way she did with all her money, yeah, I'd say their influence is done. If they did their jobs the way they used to, then I think Trump's approval will probably be more like 55, 57%. So it does bring him back a bit. But overall, let's put it this way. If you combine the audience for CNN's 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock shows, combine all those audiences, it's still less than the 5 on Fox. Isn't that amazing? And the 5, isn't it on at like 2 o'clock out here?
Yeah.
People are at work, and they're getting like 3.5, 3.6 million viewers. And then you look at CNN, and their 9 p.m. show gets 400,000 viewers. Think about that. That's 8,000 viewers per state for a network that's in 90 million homes. Like, it's almost impossible to be that low, you know? But that's where legacy media is at this point, because they've lost trust and they become predictable. That's the thing. You knew when Trump was sending those National Guardsmen into D.C. that they were going to find a way to say that this is wrong, this is horrible, this is not the right thing. But I think even COVID really hurt them, you know? When literally, if you said that COVID was from a lab, Twitter and X would shut down your account, would lock you out. And then legacy media would call people like Tom Cotton and Trump for saying that coronavirus may have come from a lab that studies coronaviruses. It's like chocolate escaping in Hershey, Pennsylvania. And you say, I wonder where the chocolate came from. That's a John Sterling, but still. Yeah, so yeah, I think that really hurt them as well, all the lockdowns and them supporting that the way they did. People are just like, screw you, I'm not gonna watch anymore. I'll get my news from X, I'll get it from a lot of other places.
Yeah.
Fox also, yeah.
We have time for 2 more questions. Why don't we do Stephen?
Yes, sir.
And then we'll come on over here.
Yes, my favorite quote in your book, I just want to know, did you steal it or did you coin it?
All right.
It is, you don't hate the media enough.
I've said it, but then I see it on social media sometimes, so I think I'm just echoing what a lot of people are saying. But yeah, gas station sushi, that's definitely mine though. That I know. Yeah, I like that one.
Okay, last question, Tricia, all the way in the front.
So I'm really curious to hear what you think politics is going to look like after Donald Trump. Because as Greg Gutfeld says, we don't deserve him because he makes it so fun.
That's the thing.
He makes it so fun. Are we just going to go back to normal campaign stops? We're not going to have these big mega rally. I mean, what does it look like? This has been so much fun.
Yeah, the bar is high. Well, Trump's probably not leaving, you know? Like 2036, I could come back here and be like, yeah, wow, 5th term, who knew? Right? JD has a good sense of humor. I know it's not the same thing, though. It's not the sharp elbows that you would think. And Marco's, you know, as serious as a prison fight. So, but that's good. Maybe we want that. Yeah, no, he's great. No, I think Democrats will just get louder and more unhinged. But that's not entertainment. That's just annoying. But no, Gutfeld's right. Like we're witnessing something like we have never seen before. I mean, you think about the story. There's a guy who was on The Apprentice, right? Reality TV star, you know, real estate mogul, tabloid king of New York. Like, he was in the New York Post every day during the 80s and the 90s, like different women he was with. That thing, and now he's may go down as the most popular president of all time. It's amazing. The question is, do people want a return to like the Ronald Reagan years of civility? And I don't know. I think a lot of people like hating the other side just as much as they like winning on their side. You know, that's why like the biggest applause we got here is that Adam Schiff is screwed. Yes, there it is again.
There it is again.
Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe I'll run. You know, I could spruce things up. No way. There's some things that went on in college I can't talk about here. But,
Maybe that'll be your next book.
yeah, no, as a bookie, they won't hold that against me, right? It's easy money. So anyway, any other questions, kids?
I'll take one more. We got one more back in the front. Oh, I think we got rid of microphones. One more. Sorry, we're just getting a microphone. And if you wonder why we're waiting for the microphone, it's so that for the people at home can actually hear the question.
Oh, okay. Oh, you can watch this at home?
They can watch it at home.
I would tell my dad.
Oh.
All right. Will it be like repeated?
We can
like
still we'll give you the link.
Okay, good.
It was the same gentleman who asked the first question. The gentleman who asked the first will ask the last. Just we could tie it in Ronald Reagan's first and last state dinner with Margaret Thatcher.
Joe, I have a media question for you.
Yeah.
You made a statement about the people that appear on different shows and they have no repercussions for anything that they say. But are there, like every so often we'll hear a statement made, let's say on CNN by somebody, and Elon says he's going to sue this person now. Is there some bar, like for example, when people are giving their opinions on the different political shows, is there a line that you can't cross? You're not necessarily giving facts, you're giving facts as you see them. A lot of it's opinion, and everyone has a different opinion.
Yeah.
So where is that line, if there is one, that in terms of legal repercussions steps in?
If you say something about somebody and it's proven that you did it intentionally with malice, knowing that it was wrong, right? So George Stephanopoulos, for example, who, again, I can't get my head around this still to this day, that this guy was Bill Clinton's attack dog, right, in his administration, and then is made like the chief anchor of ABC News. You want to make an opinion person, go ahead, fine. But the fact that we're supposed to treat him seriously as a journalist, he's interviewing Nancy Mace, and she had endorsed Trump, and he said, well, how could you do that when Donald Trump has been convicted of rape? And no such thing happened, right? It was a civil case, and rape was never used as far as like, and that was such BS anyway, because E. Jean Carroll couldn't remember like the year it happened, but yeah, sure, okay, that makes sense. But the point is that when Stephanopoulos said it 9 times during that interview, then Trump threatened to sue ABC, and guess what? They had to see, he said they settled, but they had to pay him $16 million. And he's like, okay, I'm going to take that and put it towards my presidential library, which is, a real kick in the, so that's funny. And CNN, same thing, right? And CBS, for that matter, just settled as well because they edited Kamala's interview and then wouldn't release the transcript. So there's a lot more accountability coming now, where you can't just get away with saying anything you want and just like, oh, well, I guess I just slipped the tongue. No. You say something and it's proven with malice that you were trying to hurt that person's a public figure, more and more now, those folks are winning those suits. So that's a good thing. That's the line, yeah.
All right, so thank you so much for joining us,
Thank you.
all of you out here. If you have not yet purchased the book, we are selling it in the store. We're going to walk Joe up to the store and he'll be signing books for you. So please don't just walk out, go buy yourself a book and join us in the bookstore. And thank you so much for coming.
Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it.